Okay guys, in this video we are going to add more muscle information on the lower body area. So just make sure you have your references of the bodybuilder, of legs, leg references, lots of images out there in Google. So I'm gonna go over the quads again and just further volumize this inner part of the quads here using the clay strip brush. So now that we have our basic forms there, so we already know where the muscles need to be placed, all we have to do now is just kind of slowly go over each of the muscles that we already have here and further enhance them. And there you go, just redefining the sartorius muscle and the quads and the inner part of the legs. So what I'm thinking about when I do this here, I'm thinking of the teardrop shape. So I think of the teardrop. So same this and this, I just think of big teardrops. And this right here, all the way down, it gives a really nice break on the legs. And right around here, we have some inner thigh muscles. So I like to just kind of add some fibers there. And on here, we are going to use our clay strip brush to just create the forms for the top part of the quads here. So you see me there, I have used the draw sharp brush to just kind of add a little bit of break there. So it's not just straight like this, but using the draw sharp just kind of break up the shape a little bit. So that will give it more of a realistic look. And I also added a little bit of fiber carved here because this muscle right here has a little bit of that it looks a little bit like a leaf. If you take out the skin, this is kind of like how it looks like, the écorché. There's a little bit of slight division there. And so I'm just trying to add a little bit of indication of that to make the legs look a little bit more defined. So you can see me there, I like to just use the draw sharp brush to just carve in the clay. Carve that in, and then using the clay strip brush to just add a little bit of clay on top, specifically around the areas where it's close to the parts where I have carved in. And then later I'm just gonna smooth it. And onto the side here, the side quads. This is going to be the biggest part of the quads here, the one that we have on our lateral area, side of our legs is huge. I'm gonna go ahead and rename this to hand, and then just hide the hand for now so we could better see our leg area, and back onto the sculpt mode. Okay, I'm just gonna hide the arms so we could see the side part here a little better. And here we're just going over the muscles below the pelvis area. So right now what I'm thinking about, I am thinking about this nice band here. So this is very thin sheet that's on top of the side quad here. So it's on top of that. And of course we have the butt area here. And then we got this nice little muscle on the side, and this just kind of bring it all together here. And then we have this nice little band that attaches onto the tibia bone. And then we're gonna have this right here is gonna be our hamstring area, and the tendon for the hamstring attaches to the fibula bone. All right, so we got two bones in the leg, the fibula, and we also have the bigger bone, which is the tibia. And when you're doing the legs, you could see that, just keep in mind as you're sculpting that the quads here on the side is going to be higher than the one on the inner part of the legs. Alright, see right there, I'm adding the bony landmark for the fibula bone on the lower leg, and that way I know where the muscle of the hamstring there is going to attach. Once you understand more and more of the anatomy and you study it more, it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand the direction of the muscles, where they flow. Yeah, this requires some patience, guys. And yeah, as all the artists who's been doing this for years will tell you, practice makes perfect. And right here, just using my draw sharp to just further define the muscles in the top part of the leg there. And onto our lower leg now. We gotta create some more muscle information here. So right now I am using my draw sharp, thinking about the lower leg muscle. Didn't really have much here to begin with, so I'm just kind of drawing it out. So we got the fibula bone right here, and then we have a muscle that's attaching to that. It's a little thin muscle there. We got one, and then we got its brother here right below it. So we got two strips there. They look quite thin on the lower leg. So on the lower leg, it might just look like, well, if the guy is flexing his lower leg, then you could see a little bit of maybe fibers, but it's very, very subtle. Okay, so right now I am thinking about the front leg muscles and adding more shape to that. Okay, so for here I'm just thinking about the hero muscles on the front leg that attaches to the tibia bone. So this is really prominent. You could see that on your leg if you have a muscular leg. And I'm also thinking about the muscles kind of on the side here, which is the extensor digitorum muscle, which is a muscle here, and then the tendons connect to the last four toes, and that right there allows you to kind of move, extend your toes, stretch your toes. And then we also have another muscle here, which you don't really see because it's really small, but the tendon, you could actually see the tendon because it attaches onto the toe area. This is allow you to drive, to add motion to your toes. So yeah, just I'm thinking about those shapes, and those shapes that I have mentioned there, the muscles don't really show in that area, but the tendons do show in the feet. And here are just creating a little bit more of the shape for the calves here. I thought it was a little too long, the calves, so I'm just making it a little shorter. So what I've done there is I just used the clay strip brush. You just kind of push the clay in. So initially I just thought it was a little too long, the calves area. So yeah, using this to just kind of push the clay in so that the calves is going to be a little higher. So just because you got the basic shapes there doesn't mean that you can't move its location or change the positioning of the muscles. You could still do that. Since you're at the stage where you still have your geometry that is still remeshable, you could still definitely manipulate the muscles, change it drastically if you need to. Because when it's time for us to add the micro details, we're at that stage where we're really adding those nice secondary details, then it's going to be much more difficult for us to adjust the big forms here. So yeah, now is a good time to just kind of construct the muscles properly as much as possible. And onto the hamstring area. So if you just study the way I sculpt this, I don't just like create a straight curvy shape right there. So I like to add a little bit of break here. Give it that nice skin feel to it. And right here, I'm just using my clay strip brush to add a little bit of more definition on the fibers of the butt. So once again, think of the flow, the direction of the anchor shade. So you can see there, I added like a little bit of dip there, but just very subtle. And yeah, for some people, you could see that this is kind of filled with a fat pad if it's just a regular person. But if you have a bodybuilder like this, you could see a little bit more dip in there. Now, if you take out the skin, the way the écorché look for the lower leg here is you're going to have the calves like this going this way, and then the other part of the calves this way, and then the tendons kind of go under the hamstring area. And then this is the hamstring right here. That, and then we have the other part here. This part right here, actually, there's two of the muscles for the hamstring on this side. We got this here, and then we got this another nice little strip of muscle. But you know, it just looks like S1 really, but it's kind of good to understand that what's in there. So you could, if you're planning to make the character more defined and you want to show more of the fibers, you're adding the fibers in a way that flow with the muscle construction of the body. And you can see I haven't really smoothed much of anything here, because I'm just kind of further adding more muscle information. And once all that is done, I will be smoothing at a low intensity, same that I have done for the upper body. And once again, just a reminder, guys, references are your best friend. So really, your work is just going to be as good as how much you spend time on your references. So just don't be lazy about gathering those references, guys. This is a very, very important part of character creation. Any type of creation, really, even though when you're doing environments, just spending a lot of time on gathering references is highly significant. Okay, so looking at the lower leg, see more we can add. Okay, so for the inner lower leg here, just adding more information for the soleus muscle of the lower leg. Yeah, for the leg here, we have the calves right there. And we have these tendons coming down from the sartorius muscle. We got some of it coming from the inner thigh, the tendons coming from the inner thigh, and also some of the tendons here is coming from the hamstring, just attaching to the tibia bone. And we have here is the calf area, and then we have our soleus muscle, and right below the soleus muscle, we actually have another little thin muscle there, but it rarely shows. So what you would just really see is a little bit of subtle division here, and I wouldn't really make this pop out. And I would just kind of add a little bit of volume there and maybe kind of make this very subtle and then just smooth things out. Look at a reference of the lower leg and find some nice écorché photos of the lower leg, and that will also make your life a lot easier as you're sculpting. What would also help you guys out with the anatomy is just buying some bodybuilder magazines. You could buy them from Barnes & Noble, or you could check them out on Amazon. There's some bodybuilder magazines that you could subscribe to. I'm actually subscribed to one in Amazon, so every now and then I take that magazine and I do some anatomy study, where I just look at the bodybuilder photos, and of course I grab a pen and I kind of dissect the muscles, trace out the muscles. So I visualize how how the bodybuilder would look without the skin, and then just kind of dissect them. And right here, I'm just adding a little bit of breakup on the knee area. Now, keep in mind, you do not want to show, I see some students, when they create the knee, they create it where you could really see the division of the upper leg bone and the lower leg bone, which is a big no-no. So you don't want a really, really harsh dip in there, right? So you want it to be very, very subtle. And you could even use the clay strip brush to just add a little bit of clay here on top, maybe add a little bit of clay here on top to just add a little break, and then just go ahead and smooth it out. But yeah, you don't want a very harsh line there, because it's just, as you could see there, I just done that there using the clay strip brush. You just add a little bit of clay there, and then I kind of just use the clay strip brush to also just kind of push it in to add a little break on this area here, and then smooth it out, which will give you a nice realistic feel to it. So you really want it to be subtle. You don't want those two bones to look like they are completely divided. This right here, I think it's a little too pushed in at the back. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and go to the muscles and start smoothing this area out, holding the shift key and just smooth it with a quite low intensity. That way I'm still keeping some of those fibers on there. Now, I know that the legs are not really going to show because our character is going to wear pants and boots, but I want this tutorial to be very informative, because I know some of you guys probably in the future you want to create your own character where the character's leg is showing. So there's probably going to be a point where you want to just do the entire anatomy, and you want to do something like a Spartan, where they're just wearing something really short that shows the muscle, the quads and everything, and the calves. So if you want to do a Spartan, they have outfit that actually really show the leg area. So if you want to do something like that, you have to know the anatomy of the legs. And so this is the reason why, even though the legs are going to be covered, I still want to add some details here, and just so that you could use this tutorial in the future as a guide for any of your future characters that requires you to reveal the leg area. Okay, so we got a nice defined legs there. And right now I'm just back doing a little touch up on the wrist area here, adding some breaks, adding a little bit more of that fibrous feel and smoothing. And also, if you look at the legs, there are parts here on the legs that are a little deeper. I just use the draw sharp to just kind of carve in the edges here. So that's a little deep here. So some areas of the muscles are just going to be a little bit more deeper than the others. So that will give you a little bit more variance on the muscles. Okay, and right here, I think is too much pushed in there on the area. And then looking from the top view, see how it looks like. And to the side, going all around. Alright, and you can see right here, there's a little bit of lumpiness going on. So there's a little bit of lumpiness on the clay. So some areas that look a little lumpy, and this is a good view to look at on the top view of the leg. So that way you can see if there's any lumpiness on the mesh. And then just use the regular draw brush here to just sculpt the areas, volumize the areas that look a little lumpy. Just make sure that the intensity is not too strong, otherwise you'll make it lumpier. So right here, I'm just getting rid of the lumpiness. And onto the top view from here also. I think the part at the back is actually pretty good. Onto the object mode. Let's go ahead and check this out when it's rendered. Yeah, right now you can't really see much of the legs because it's just going, the light's only illuminating the upper body. So what we could do is we could just go to our view and we could go ahead and move that out. And then kind of rotate this, see if we could reposition the light and play around with the transform orientation. Okay, I'm gonna go to my light and crank up my power so we could see more of the orc's body from top to bottom. Okay, I'm gonna rotate to show more of the leg. Okay, and back onto our view. Just put it at an angle. I'm gonna rotate this a bit. So we can see a little bit more there. And we set it to cycles. So yeah, the render engine that we're gonna use for our final render is gonna be cycles. Cycles is used more for animation, and Eevee render is used for real-time games. So what we're doing is more for future films, more like independent films, or more for cinematic trailers for games. But because this is the thing that we're doing here is going to be high resolution, really high resolution, and really big textures that we're using. Yeah, if you're doing stuff for games, definitely stick to Eevee. And right now I'm just cranking up the power so that the light could illuminate more of the leg area. Okay, great. We could see more of it. Gonna move it here to the side. Let's see. Maybe I could put it in a different position, in the opposite position here. Okay. Yeah, you can see I just duplicated the light and then just kind of put it at the back. So that's gonna be acting as a rim light. Also, when you're lighting, mess around with the orientation here. Whatever will make it easier for you to move and reposition the light, mess around with those. So I just go back and forth between using view and normal usually. So right here, I'm just gonna change the rim light. The rim light is the backlight really. Yeah, the rim light will give us a nice lighting on the edges of the body of the character. And maybe change it back to a little bit more white and scale the size down. The more you scale down the size of the lighting, you will notice that the rim light will become more intense because we got more of a harder edge. So if you really want the rim light to pop out, then decrease the size of the the area light there. And yeah, you could see the muscles of the back. You could see more what's going on here. Okay, so it's coming along. We got more definition here. And back to object mode. Let's go back to sculpt mode. Okay, so there are a few things that I want to adjust here. I want to kind of bring this down a little bit more. I think his shoulder is way up. And then move this down. So I kind of want his arm to be more like relaxed, like this. Yeah, more like this. Okay, so we got a nice feel to it. Really nice relaxed pose. And I kind of bulk this up a little bit. It looks a little flat on the deltoid area. And also here. Using the clay strip brush. Okay, so that's a lot better. Let's check out the render. Yeah, rendering here will give you some more information on what else you need to fix as far as proportion goes, as far as muscle construction goes. So definitely check out your render every now and then. Yeah, it's really looking good, our muscles. Everything is in pretty good shape so far. Back onto the sculpt mode. Probably could do a little bit more on the deltoid. Gonna bulk this up a bit. Yeah. All right. Render again. Yes, definitely progressing. Yeah, so what you really want, you want really nice bulk on there onto the deltoid. But at the same time, you don't want the entire arm to be this high, the shoulder that high, because it's just going to look like he's hunched. But it really depends on the character also, so if you really want him to look a little bit hunched, that's up to you.